right? So it's really important as we expand and scale and become an interstellar species, you never lose sight of that humanity. So next up, we are going to have a little bit of a panel here. We're going to keep it a little bit shorter than it says in the program just to catch up on some time. So I am going to welcome up Jacob, Sherry, and Chris onto the stage here. Yes, thank you, Jacob. Welcome again. Have a seat. Chris, thank you.
I'm coming.
All right. Well, Jacob, we met you already, so we won't waste times with introductions with you. But maybe, Chris, if you want to just introduce yourself here.
Test. Hey, everybody. My name is Chris Smithson, and I'm with Gravity Grains. My company is specializing in space agriculture. You would never have guessed that. So I've been doing research independently for about 4 years now, on top of some earlier research and trying to build spaceships and go explore the stars and kind of dreaming like a kid. And to be honest, I thought that the food part was figured out. Don't we have replicators on Star Trek yet? Well, we don't, unfortunately. And as I started looking into the logistics of it and the reality of just trying to dream, it wasn't there. And I started to fall in love with space agriculture and started my company to encompass not just the research I've been doing, but to champion forward some visions towards where I'd like us to go in the next couple of years.
Great. Thank you, Chris. And we'll meet you later today. And Sherry, want to introduce yourself real quick?
I'm Sherry Fieberbeyer. I'm a professor in space studies.
Great, and we'll hear more about your research that's coming up. But like I mentioned this morning, one of the main takeaways that we want to talk about is kind of the tech transfer of how space research and technology has impacts on agriculture. So I kind of want to start this conversation around kind of agriculture in space with you, Jacob, as somebody who's worked in the industry for a long time and been responsible for hundreds of missions, whatever it is, up to space. Talk about maybe some of the innovations that have happened because of space technology, space research, maybe the space race in general.
Sure. I think, probably the biggest one that we all use daily not necessarily unrelated to agriculture, but as GPS, of course, is probably one of the greatest things that we've received from figuring out space right now. And we use it daily to drive in our cars. And I know right now they're using it for tractors and for farming. So I think that's one of the largest things that have directly benefited Earth. But I mean, other than that, like I said earlier in my talk, is we've been studying plants in space for a long time, and I think understanding, the various, Trent mentioned it too, but gravitropism and everything that we've learned from studying them in space, I like to think has helped us grow them better here on Earth and has improved that. Yeah.
Great. All right. So we're going to be talking a lot about extreme environments. Sherry, you're going to be talking about that a little bit with some of your research that you're doing with asteroid farming. But maybe, how does thinking about kind of these growing food on extreme environments, whether it's the moon and in microgravity or using asteroid regolith, how does kind of focusing on these challenges encourages researchers and scientists to think beyond the normal kind of thought process?
Well, in terms of asteroids, we're starting to see that the asteroids do encompass the micro and macronutrients necessary to grow plants. And when we start getting, to Mars, people are not going to be happy eating a salad. Nor are their caloric intakes going to be met. So we have to start thinking about crops that will be more filling and be sustainable.
Sure, that's great. So after the break here, we're going to hear from somebody that's going to talk about the space industry at large. It's going to be a $1 trillion industry here by 2030. Everybody knows what's happening with SpaceX and Elon Musk and how that's kind of creating the railroads in the sky that's going to unlock new businesses. So maybe I'll start with Chris and then go to Jacob. As Chris, you got a brand new company that you're just getting off the ground, tough industry to break into. So maybe talk about how that how you're approaching breaking into this, some of the challenges, kind of where you see the opportunities, and then Jacob, we'll go to you.
That's a great statement because I do get asked quite often, how do you build a $100 million, $200 million company to be able to keep up with a potentially $1 trillion industry? And for the most part, make sure you keep a main-time job. I do actually work a full-time job in addition to trying to do this. And so what's left over between self-funding experiments and researches and working with the right groups, getting the right projects out there to start checking off the boxes of what's missing. It's been years of just self-funding. As you start to make more sense to yourself, then you start making more sense to others, and then others will start to support you. It's a long, hard, drawn-out process, but just stay the course, be committed, and keep focused on why you're trying to do what you're trying to do, and then those opportunities and those doors start to open, and additional lines of funding start to come through as you collaborate and develop that vision.
Great. Jacob, Interstellar Lab has grown quickly. I think you have 60 or so employees, got a lot of attention, but this is a tough market. So how are you guys approaching it?
Yeah, it's definitely a tough market right now. I think, we'll hear more from whoever's speaking this afternoon, but it seems we're currently going through a fundraising round as well. A lot of companies are, and I think a lot of the, with the election year and everything, there's a lot of I think the investments people are just pulling back, waiting to see what's going to happen in a little bit here, waiting to see how much Starship continues to develop and things like that. So there's a lot of, it seems to be waiting, and I think it's it's a tight time, I think, for the space industry and getting funding for it. But that being said, there's and I've helped all these groups write proposals in the past that have done, there's the ISS National Lab, there's the SIBR program, there's NASA Centennial Challenges. So we won the Deep Space Food Challenge, which was a nice, it was worth $1 million prize, grand total. So there's all these definitely ways to get funding. I think what you said is key, is stay the course, because it's a long and arduous battle. I help write the proposals and things at Interstellar, and thankfully our CEO is the one that goes out and tries to find all the funding, and I'm the one that figures out what we do with the funding. So
yeah, well, that's a good position to be in.
Yeah.
Great. So we heard from NASA earlier today. Sherry, we're going to hear more from UND throughout the day here. We have some private industry here. Maybe from a university perspective, Sherry, how does UND think about advancing this industry? And maybe it's being around for going on almost 50 years now with the space studies. You've seen a lot of changes in the industry. So maybe how is the university thinking about the next 50 years of approaching the space industry at large?
Well, I think we're thinking far future, not what's tomorrow, but what we can do in 20, 30 years, how we position our students to go into industry, to go into government, and how they will make the best impact in terms of their contributions, whether they're astronauts, whether they're scientists, whether they're space lawyers.
Space lawyers. Are they going to be more like than Earth lawyers?
Well, you'll have to ask Michael Dodge.
Yeah, all right. I'll ask Michael there later. Great. Well, maybe, Jacob, as somebody who's been around in the industry for a while, what role do you think the universities play in, like UND, what you're seeing here as somebody pretty new to this ecosystem, seeing the university for the first time? Give us some of your general impressions, and then how can we think about, North Dakota? I guarantee most of the people in this state or this region don't spend any time thinking about the space industry. Give us your sales pitch, why we should be thinking about this, and maybe why UND can help be the leader in it.
Sure. I think that the best thing in a lot of universities, obviously universities they do research, and I would say at my time at NanoRacks, of those 100 experiments, 90% of them were universities doing a research experiment, and they got some grant funding to do that experiment. So I think that still exists, and that's still the case. I think a great thing that universities can do is, like I saw the lunar habitat today that you guys have. It'd be awesome if you, would reach, I don't know if you have, but reaching out with the commercial lunar providers right now to see. I think it's that collaboration between university and industry that could really, you guys do something that maybe they don't do very well, and they do things that I don't know. So I think it's the collaboration. Yeah.
Great. All right. Chris, yesterday in Fargo, you spoke at our Startup Bureau, gave a pretty inspiring talk around kind of how you're thinking about this, why it's important for kids. You were around this morning when we had about 200 high school students here. What's your viewpoint on kind of why space is exciting for the generation? You know, just watching that video, hearing the Interstellar song, I felt myself getting pumped up. So maybe give us the best sales pitch that you have around why this is really important from a STEM inspirational education standpoint.
Well, STEM is the lifeblood of innovation and invention, and art is the reason for doing so. And I love to see that marriage of the performance in this STEM environment to really reflect on how important it is that we have that holistic STEAM. With that said, the future means nothing without our children. I think everyone in here can pretty much violently agree with that statement. And if we don't leave much for the children, shame on us. So by experimenting in our STEM and expanding our horizons and exploring the universe that's at our doorstep, we're providing an opportunity, maybe not for us to walk on the moon or to walk on Mars or to explore the solar system with cruise ships and, you know, magical environments. We can at least take steps in that direction. And they're not going to be there to enjoy that process if they don't know anything about it, if they don't know how to maintain it, if they don't know how to continue being thought leaders in this industry and really helping us set that dream forward.
Great, love it. All right, so here's going to be the last question before we go into the break. So Jacob, we're going to start with you, so no pressure. The year is 2040. What are some of the key milestones that we should aim to achieve from a space industry standpoint with what we're talking about here?
I hope I'm there wherever we are. I mean, like, sorry. I hope I'm on the moon or Mars or something, and I can afford to be there. No, I think that I think by that point, hopefully, we have. I'm a realist, so I would hope that we have some habitats that we're starting to develop definitely on the moon by that point for sure. With the Artemis missions, with Starship moving on. And then hopefully we have some habitats and we're starting to be on Mars. I know a lot of people are Mars by 2040, so I think that's definitely possible. I think the big milestone will be figuring out both first the cost to space and then which Starship is kind of addressing, and then the production of food so that humans can live in space.
Great. Chris, we'll go to you.
I would hope to see a multinational collaboration on the moon where we have multiple settlements capitalizing on the different areas of interest and building a lunar road to connect all of them. And done in such a discreet way that when we look up in the night sky, we know we are there, we know we've accomplished that, but we haven't defaced the beauty of our own moon in the process. There's going to be a lot of industrial responsibility and a lot of international and collaboration responsibility to get there ethically and sustainably. And I'm really looking forward to knowing that I played a small part in that.
Great. Sherry, we'll give you the last word here.
Well, what do I see in 2040? I see farmers, Martian farmers, lunar farmers, and I don't see them working in aeroponics or hydroponics. I see them working with the regolith, either asteroid regolith or lunar regolith. Martian regolith's poison. But I see them working the soil. I see them growing the plants. And I see them, doing sustainable agriculture, which I'll address in my talk.
Great. Well, there you go. You heard it here first, folks.